I always start with the hey y'all. Welcome to the Preacher After Show here at the Stream.tv. We are back with another crazy but addictive episode of Preacher, and I'm your host, Jocelyn Polite, and we're in a little different position, so I'm going to kick it over to my co-host, my marvelous co-host, and I'm going to start with...
Hey everybody, I'm Timothy Michael. I'm going to be on Twitter, so follow us at Preacher Fan Show, #PreacherAS. And I'm going to follow it with my beautiful co-host.
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Kiyra Lynn, and I am on the YouTube chat, so please feel free. Talk to us, ask questions, comment, tell us what's going on.
Do it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight we were thinking about doing something a little different. We're going to do the show as we normally do, but what we're going to do is at the end, some of you have been giving us comments that you want to talk a little bit about the comics. And so at the end, we're going to talk about the comics, but we'll definitely give you a heads up. If you don't want any spoilers or you don't want to know anything, we'll let you know, and then we'll move into talking about the comics. Sound good? Yes. All right, so let's, I know, like you guys can talk back to me, but we're going to start with Tulip. Tulip was action-packed tonight, and we got a little backstory on her, but we started with her on the bench with who we found out now is Danny.
Who I thought was a man, turns out to be a woman. Who would have guessed?
Right. I thought Danny was a guy also, so.
Yeah.
I think tonight, for me at least, there were some dots connected, and it seems like that both Tulip and Jesse were assassins in a previous life.
Assassins are hitmen.
Or hitmen,
Yeah.
yes. So, I mean, for me, I've always been questioning what was it that they used to do, and I think tonight they finally answered that question.
Yeah, I know for me, I knew that they were up to something and they were doing something, but I didn't know that Jesse was as involved. And so, you know, I think we said before on a previous show, and I was like, I don't think Jesse is, you know, an assassin, but obviously I was wrong. So it looks like they were, you know, both up to no good. But one thing that I did notice is that we did get a flashback with Tulip, and I believe it was Jesse that left her, the moment that Jesse left Tulip, possibly, because the car took off.
Yeah.
I thought that it was possibly Jesse left her because she was like, oh,
And then basically she said that was the day that everything turned bad.
Right.
And I think I actually, like, somebody's got to pay. I actually wrote it down because I felt that that was a real pertinent piece of information. But as it goes on, it shows that in the flashback, you see this guy who's like been shot in the head, and it pulls back, and you see it's Jesse in this like 70s like get up.
Yeah.
I know, looking rather handsome there. And then I know, I'm always like, hi, Dominic Cooper, Preacher, yes.
we got this for the last hour. Trust me.
Last hour.
I can't help it. But then it just pulls out, and you see where Tulip is like yelling at the car, and the car is taking
And that's right
off.
after they introduced the guy, this other mystery guy, Carlos.
Carlos.
So I'm assuming it was Carlos who left them, and that's why they want to get Justin's son Carlos, which we'll talk about.
Well, I was just being a romantic. I'm sorry. I thought that maybe like Jesse left her, and you know, because I was looking at how feminine she looked, and I was like, well, maybe this is where things turn, but you know. Who knows? I was wrong. But, okay, so Carlos, we were introduced to several new characters tonight. It seems like a lot of names went by, and I don't know, you know, I'm very willing to admit when I'm confused, and tonight was one of those episodes where it took a lot to keep up, and I know I'm going to end up watching this episode 2 or 3 times. But Danny wants her husband killed, and I think, Tim, you made this point that like, no, she wasn't that serious about it, or you did, Kira.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what, when you said assassins, that's why I thought hitmen, because she was kind of asking her, or I guess hiring her to kill her husband. But like I said, she let it go really fast when Tulip was like, no, I'm not killing your husband. Like, no, I'm not going to do it. So, and then she gave her the map, and then they moved on.
Yes, and let's talk about this map. And we finally, who is this guy? I mean, Danny takes the map and then walks into what it looked like a snuff film sort of festival. I thought that was kind of funny. And I know snuff films are not funny, but and hands the map over to this guy in white and basically says, you know, I told you that my girl could do it, and then just gets brushed off aside.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm
and
still
then some man
wondering-
like walked off. It was just, there's a lot of missing pieces, but we did get that last week when we saw the man riding away on the horse and going into Ratwater, and then they didn't continue with it this week. So we're just getting the introduction to several things, and then, you know, on to the other. But another one was Fiore, LeBlanc, and Cassidy. They had an interesting dynamic because Fiore and LeBlanc are alive.
Right.
You know, so the chainsaw situation didn't didn't really happen, but we also found out that they admitted they're from heaven.
Right.
So that lets you know they're angels.
But taking
maybe.
a step back from that, I did like that scene when it was Sheriff Root and then the two of them in the hotel room, motel room.
That was a
If you want to be
motel.
classy.
Yeah, motel.
You're right. You're right.
Holiday Inn.
That was good. But them just like kind of getting this cover story about they're here from the government and they're looking for this crazed killer that's like on the loose, and you know that's how they get Sheriff Root to like kind of back off, but
Pretending
then,
like they're FBI agents or whatever, which they don't
but then
look like
Sheriff
either.
Root goes into this like this really morbid story about this like these 3 kids and how this kid got like left and then these other 2 kids got killed and got abducted. I was like, you going deep.
It was, and it was kind of unnecessary. I thought, like, what is this story really about? It wasn't really connected, I felt like, in a way.
But if you think about like the top, like he was trying to get it from them. Like, are we talking about a serial killer? Are we talking about
Right.
a lunatic?
Yeah.
And so, you know, and they weren't giving it to him. So I think he was just kind of like saying, giving them the story, like, well, if this is kind of a lunatic that you're trying to tell us that may be running rampant in our town,
Yeah.
well, here's a story. You know, I think he was just trying to lay it out for them that maybe they need to be a little bit more open with the information that they're hiding.
Yeah.
Well, they need a lot more because they are hands down the worst assassins that there could ever be. I mean, and now it makes sense because they're from heaven, so obviously they don't, you know, have that in them to be the type of assassins that you would be if you're from hell.
Well, I mean, that's a big statement. You keep just throwing that out there, like they're from heaven. Like you guys, they're from heaven. Like
Yes.
So are they angels? Are they
Angels.
fallen angels? Like what? Like where? What are they? And they're going after this thing that they have to put back in a can.
Yeah, that's in
There is
camera.
a power. There is a power that Jesse has that belongs in heaven. And
Right.
they're
They
on a
say.
mission to get this power and take it back to heaven.
Right, but what I loved is when Cassidy was asking Jesse like what this power feels like, and he's explaining it to him, and he's like, it feels like everything. It feels like all of God's creation is inside of me. So these guys from heaven are coming to get something that feels like God's creation inside Jesse. Okay.
And now, see, this is the thing, if I can bring it back with Cassidy. Cassidy has butchered these guys. Like, he chopped them up, he put them in a box, he buried them under the tree, and then all of a sudden they show up again in the motel room
Right.
Yeah.
with Sheriff Root.
Yeah.
And then he runs them over with the car, and you can see that their bodies are still mangled left outside, and yet
And then this light goes off, and then all of a sudden,
there's another set.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, Cassidy is up against himself. He heals, so do they. You know what I
No,
mean? And
they
two-
don't even just heal.
They
a
just-
whole brand new set shows up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah, but that's what I mean. You have 2 different situations. I mean, he's looking at something that's like, wow, wait, you can do that? I can do that too. So it's just that's an interesting dynamic that we haven't dived into yet.
You know what's interesting though is that when they were talking in the church, I love how when in last episode when Cassidy told Jesse that he was a vampire and Jesse didn't really
he
kind of
just-
believe him because who would, right? But then they tell Cassidy that they're from heaven, and he's like, all right, cool. And then they go into this whole conversation outside, and it's, you know, hey, you leave him alone, let him be, and I'll be your middleman. I will get him to you. I will get what you want. Do we feel like he is being authentic with that?
I don't know.
Is he loyal to Jesse?
I feel like he's loyal to Jesse with what he knows now, but I don't know, like going forward, if he's going to continue to be loyal to him. But right now, I think he is a BFF. I think that's his friend. I think he has his back right now. I don't know. He thought these men were after him, and now he's found out that, you know, they're actually after Jesse. Is he still gonna protect him?
I think Cassidy is way more. He's just way. He's a outside of the box thinker. So I think he's going to be taking in this information, these guys from heaven, you know, and then analyzing it and seeing how he can use it to his advantage and play both sides. And I'm wondering, and maybe I was a little bit confused whether or not he did tell them he was a vampire, correct? And they were like, we don't deal with that sort of thing in heaven.
He did bring that up, but I don't think they really.
Yeah, see, they didn't get it either.
Yeah,
There's a lot. There was a lot, but we're going to leave them there.
Okay.
And we're going to come back to them and talk about them actually in the comments because I think there's a lot of places to go with those. But let's go to Donnie. Poor Donnie. I don't know if it's poor Donnie because I didn't like Donnie from the very beginning, but Donnie got his.
He
you know?
did get his, and I understand why you say poor Donnie, because that moment when the, what did you say his name is? I'm sorry, Odin?
Odin.
Odin,
yes.
Quincannon.
the owner of the Quincannon Meat and Power Company. They were in the office and they were having that conversation, and he told him to pick up his tray, and he couldn't. I kind of felt a little bad, but then I was like, no. But then taking a step back from that, his conversation with his son Chris, I found was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because he kind of cornered this little boy. And
I thought he was
to,
going to
like,
beat his ass.
So did I. So did I. And then he like turns into this whole, you know, I feel like he was trying to explain to him what his mother was trying to explain to Jesse about how, you know, adults are complicated and how, you know, the noises that she makes that you hear from the bedroom might not be exactly what you interpret it to be. So I'm like, so he's sticking to that whole, okay, so she likes it story.
But we said she liked it. I said she liked it from the beginning.
I don't
So
know,
she's
you
making
guys.
funny noises. I don't know if he's lying and he's saying that she's making these funny noises, or if they're into some bondage stuff. You just don't know. Some of these church folks. I'll leave that there. But you understand what I'm saying? We don't know
I do,
yet
but
exactly
I feel like his
what.
temper is just so off of the chain that he might just pop her one.
But
and
this
then,
is the funny thing. I was really, and I definitely have the expectation that little Chris was going to just get his ass kicked in the alleyway. But this was the first time I've even seen Donnie remotely soft. Like, he was having a moment with his son, and I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah, no, he was a little more human this episode, and I felt sorry for him when Jesse had him going through the whole thing of putting the gun in his mouth, and, you know, I wasn't sure for a second.
I knew that was coming, and
You did.
We
You
were
called
talking
it.
about
Yeah.
we were talking about it, that I called it only because, and I'm all, yay, I finally got something right. But just to see the buildup, like that conversation with him and his son in the alley, and his son basically saying, oh, all the kids at school are saying that, you know, they heard that you made this bunny sound when, you know, a preacher broke your arm, and, you know, I beat up some kid because, you know, they were making fun of you. And then he walks into the bus, and all the kids, he opens the door, and all the kids are like, make the bunny sound. I could just see that tension build up. And then when he was in his boss's office, you know, he's basically saying, my right-hand man can't even use his right hand. Like,
yeah, it was just too much for him. But I'm wondering also, what's going to happen between him and Jesse, because obviously he got through this, and Jesse, speaking of which, does he really know how to handle this power he's been given? Because it seems as though, I know he said in the end that he got it, but I don't know. You know, it still seems as though Jesse has some good and evil within him that's going back and forth. You know, whether it's his past peeking up, or, you know, what's going on with him now as a preacher of a church. I don't know how Jesse is going to necessarily handle this power.
I mean, but that's every person. Everybody has a little bit of good and a little bit of evil in them. I'm wondering if he understands his power of influence, which he does now because he kind of demonstrates it with Cassidy by having him do all this
That was
crazy
hilarious.
charade stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like the word is taking very literally.
Right.
And when he told that girl Tracy, when she was in a coma, to open her eyes, that's all she did.
Right.
So
She
it's like
did,
she's
right.
still not like
Right.
completely there. So what?
He should have said regain consciousness. I mean, like,
But he didn't.
open
At
her-
the time, he didn't know what he was doing.
I'm sure he
No, he did know what he was doing. He went over there to do that. He went over there to pray with her, and he knew he had that power because that was after they kicked him back with pedophile man in the bathroom.
Right. But did you think that do you think that he knows to be very literal about it?
Very specific.
Very specific. Thank you.
Okay, no, he doesn't know. That's what I mean. Like, he can't. I don't think he can really handle it. But I know he said that he got it, and we had in Ted's funeral scene. That was sad with
That
the
was
lawn chairs
sad.
and everything.
Mom
Really
didn't
was.
even show up to his own funeral.
No.
His mother is traumatized.
She's
girl.
traumatized. She's in a nursing home. She's not. She can't. She can't. But I mean, he got buried.
She can't.
He got buried in front of the church.
That
he
was
didn't
nice.
really have a lot
Yeah.
of friends. And we saw an interesting truck. I don't know what you call that thing.
I guess a muffler.
Is that a
right?
muffler?
Was it-
I don't know what
well,
that is,
before we
but-
even get to the muffler, I
Okay.
love how they like zoomed out and you saw John Custer's gravesite. I don't know if you saw it. Did you catch
Yes,
that?
I did.
Yeah, John Custer's gravesite was there, which I thought was cool because I didn't know that his father was buried there, which kind of makes sense because his father is a pastor. So I didn't get to see the years though. So if you guys catch the years, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it. I want to see how young it was he died. But yeah, then they go to this muffler thing.
Yeah, and I think one of our viewers even noticed or commented that the tree that
Yes.
that they were hanging from.
The Indians were hanging
that
from.
the Indians were hanging from last episode was the tree that's right there in front of the church. So a whole lot happened on this ground that's right there. So we're going to get more of that.
Yeah.
Wow, we had a lot. There was a whole lot more to discuss, and we're definitely going to discuss more of them in comments. But we're going to get to what you have to say and what you observed right after we take this break. So we'll be right back.
Woo! Yay!
In case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live. In case you missed it live. How did we not figure that out?
High five.
We had a crazy vampire threesome.
And you can't unsee that. That's burned into my brain now.
I was like,
You know why we saying yes. You know why we saying yes.
look at me, I'm dancing.
He was like, yeah, I'll tell you whatever you want.
He is wait something.
And we're like, ooh, inseparable.
These hoes ain't look. These hoes ain't look.
You just went to a totally different direction on that one.
I love it. That's genius.
We're funny.
Billionaire goes broke, it means he's got like $4 million.
There's got to be a code on that.
This might actually be a thing.
Somebody better take some pictures of this.
What did I do? What is there?
Are we there yet? Can we talk about this?
We've been waiting all night. I don't know.
I don't like to break nails.
You can't count anything out.
It's been another awesome night at the Stream.tv, guys.
Thank you for joining us, you guys.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining us tonight. And remember to click subscribe and follow the Stream.tv on Twitter as well. Okay, so we're going to get to some comments, but also to let you know, just to for what we said at the top of the show, was that we're going to have a section at the end where we talk a little bit about the comics. So we don't want to spoil it for anyone. So at the end, I'll let you know when you can kind of check out and not want to deal with that. Okay, so we're going to go over to some comments. So Kiyra,
Well, I just want to give some shout outs to the guys who are following us on the chat. Zello Police, Patrick Holmes, Danny McHenry, and Puka Simone. Thank you so much for talking to us on the chat. But then last week on YouTube, in the comments, we had Milton Jones. He basically said, I love the comics. I don't really care if the show is a note-for-note copy. The comic was written 20 years ago, and TV is just not the same as print. Well, we highly agree with you.
Agree. Yeah.
And then our friend Grimjaw Jack, he was the one that pretty much said, I feel like there's a void to fill for those who read the comics. Can you guys do a section at the end for spoilers, which we are, thank you, Grimjaw. So this is for you. And then, okay, Kai. He basically said, I didn't realize how much I missed these guys until I hadn't seen them for a while.
Oh, that's so sweet.
We love you.
We know you too. Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. Okay, we're going to go to some shout outs. So
Yeah,
Tim.
awesome. So we've got some great Twitter shout outs at JamCJakes. Oh, I'm sorry, at IMCJakes. At Jennifer R. Carey. At Preacher vs. Preach. At Preacher vs. Preach. They have some really funny gifts and a really great podcast. At Addenville, Texas, TX. Huge Preacher fan, also has a blog. And we also have a Facebook group called Preacher Fan Group. And one of our followers on there, his name is Chris Thompson, is doing some fan art in the works.
He's doing Cassidy.
He is. He's doing Cassidy.
Yeah.
So that we're going to get him to send us some pictures of that. But as soon as he does, we'll
definitely put that on the
yeah, we'll
show.
show it to you guys. But
Yeah,
thank you guys for
definitely.
following us on Twitter and being engaged with us.
All right. Well, we are going to kick off pretty soon, but we want to let you know to follow the stream and to join us every Sunday night because we'll be right here for this series because we're loving it and we're in love with it. And to follow us also on Preacher Fan Show, at Preacher Fan Show on Twitter and Preacher Fan Group on Facebook. It's a lot to remember.
Can I just say one
Yes.
thing? I just really hope that our friend in our Preacher Fan Group, Samantha Pines, who lost
She lost power.
She lost power and wasn't
Yeah.
able to watch tonight's episode. So hopefully, you're watching us. But sorry, girl. We hope you get it.
Catch up on this episode because it was good.
Yeah, I hope you got around to it. So
And
we're
really
gonna,
quick, I'm sorry,
Sure.
just before we jump into the comics, anybody who's affected by the Orlando shootings,
Yes.
our hearts and our love goes out to, all the families and the friends and the loved ones. Stay strong, you guys. We'll get through this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to click off now. We're going to go over to spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, we'll see you next week.
Spoiler alert. Don't pay attention now. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay. I've been dying for this.
I know I wanted to talk about this so much. Last week we had we saw some Saint of Killers, which
Yes.
I wanted to see so badly because that part when I read those, I just thought it was really interesting how he came to be and what happened in Routwater and how it all came to be. So how did you guys feel last week when we saw that?
Can we talk about the casting
Yes.
of this guy
was
as Saint of
perfect.
Killers?
He was
He's
perfect.
perfect, and they stuck to the storyline. They did some really great homages. They did switch out the winter for summer in the desert, which I actually really liked because it gives you more of this whole deadly just vast kind of feel to it, this hopelessness kind of feel to it, which I liked.
Well, I was waiting because I'm thinking, well, isn't there supposed to be one huge storm? And I kept
Right.
waiting for the storm
Exactly.
to happen, but I was like, the environment or the season didn't match. So I'm very interested to see how they end up going with that.
Right.
And I'm really interested also to see, which I thought they were going to kind of dive into when he reaches the town and he comes up on, all those characters that he has a problem with and all of those, and how he ended up getting to hell. So,
Yeah.
that was really crazy too, because it really wasn't he didn't do anything terrible to get to, but he ended up in hell.
Right.
And so I'm going to love for them to dive into that a little bit more. But LeBlanc and Fiore are also some that we pulled from, the comics, and they came from heaven and they were given an assignment to go and find Jesse so that they can pull this power back, or actually to find him so that they can kind of guide him. It seemed like a little more in the comics.
Genesis,
Right.
finally find Genesis, and remind me again what Genesis is
Genesis is the child of the
child
demon
of-
and the angel.
Yes, the demon and the angel got together and there was
created
a child.
Genesis, and that's why God quit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what at the very end of this episode, when you guys were talking about the muffler, I think that Saint of Killers is buried underneath.
Which he is,
Yes.
because he fought the devil to get out. So
Yes.
because the devil wasn't too pleased with him being down there anyway. And what kind of messed up are you that the devil doesn't want you?
He kicked the
Right.
devil's butt.
And then, really quick on Fiore and DeBlanc, they're part of these group of angels called the Adelphi angels, which are a little less than the Seraphi angels, if I'm saying that correctly. I might be wrong.
Well, you're all above my head, so don't.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. But the point is, it just gives you more of an urgency to their characters in the show, because it's like they're here, they need this mission to prove that they could do this mission to the other angels so that they don't kick their asses.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm really excited to see where.
Well,
that
I
goes.
love to see the whole thing that's going on with the Genesis, and then how Jesse and because he's going to come in, that they're going to bring that in. And so that Saint of Killers intertwining is going to be amazing with Preacher.
Really quick, in this episode, they kind of hinted at the fact of the Grail, which is this group that is also searching for Genesis. And because when Tulip handed Danny the map, she said, "Oh, this is from Grail Enterprises," or Grail Industries. I'm sorry. So I'm interested to see where that goes too.
Exactly. And we all, just last point, we love this Tulip more than the comics. I think we can all agree on that one.
Yeah, and I just want to get this off of my chest so you can get it off. Oh, she's so whiny in the comics. I know that she has more of an evolution, and we don't want to go too far ahead in the comics for those of you who are reading the comics but aren't that far ahead. But she's so whiny at this
Very
point right
whiny.
now.
Yeah.
I just want to say, though, there was so much going on in this episode, but I have to say, by episode 3, they're trying to lay out so much of the foundation. I'm really interested, and I always say this, I'm really interested to see how far they'll actually lay the foundation before they'll actually start spinning off into things completely not within the comics.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. And I mean, I've read the comics, and there's still some confusion in how they're handling it TV-wise. You know, I mean, even with me watching it that way. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah,
with
there
it,
are
and so
plenty
we
of
can talk.
characters that they're like deviating from. Like, you know, Eugene and his father, Sheriff Root. Sheriff Root was only in like what, 3 or 4 of the
Yeah,
issues,
exactly right.
and they never even had a relationship. And his mom was never in there either. So it's like to where we are. So they're deviating from the graphic novels in a way to kind of give characters dimension on the show, which I'm not mad at.
No, not at all.
I kind of like Sheriff Root in the show. I hated him in the comics, but I
hated
like
him in the comics. He was a lot more evil in the comics too.
Oh, yeah.
So I agree
Because he's
with
an
you.
ass.
But we'll continue this every single week. We'll just have a section where we talk about the comics and see how you feel about that. Give us you comment actually,
Yeah.
and let us know how you feel about this little portion where we do discuss the comics. But we will be back next Sunday for another wonderful and exciting episode of Preacher. So meet us back here, and until then, you have a great week. Be safe.
Be
and
safe, guys.
let the church say
Amen. Bye, guys.
Night.